Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Scary.
Ooh. Running with scissors, knocking over pencils.
Is nothing
pencils. Safe or sacred?
No. I don't have anything else creepy. Do I have anything creepy here? No, not really. Anyway, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're back. We told you we would be back. And, hopefully you already listened to the first one and you're jumping right on in listening to the second one. And we are here. We're giving you all the Halloween goodies. This is
just so you know, they're all in the second one. The first one was just for chumps. So if you're only listening to this one, good job, you chose correctly.
Mm-hmm. Except for the Black Phone. I really did like the Black Phone.
Yeah, I liked Burial. I liked a bunch of things. I liked Orphan, First Kill. Hey, Sue Me. I thought it was pretty good. So there's lots of good stuff in the first one. If you haven't listened to that, this is the second part of a two-part show. A movie show with Joel and Ryan first, where both parts came out a couple of days apart. Fresh, maybe a little too fresh, ripe per se, for the Halloween season. We're not quite an old, decaying pumpkin, but we're not looking our best at this point. That's no reason, Joel, not to go on with the show and to continue. What do we got? 20 more movies, right? To get
something like
here?
that. Yep. Something like that.
It's going to be fun. I'll say what I said in the last show. I'll try and say it quicker, but it's kind of hard to articulate. But this is a recommendation show. So we really are trying to, I'm reacting to all these movies that I saw during scary movie season. But we're trying to give you guys recommendations. My first recommendation to Joel, The Black Phone, knocked that one out of the park. He was thrilled to watch that. I thought he probably would be, but you never know. And, similarly, I had a friend over the other night who, I wanted to share a pretty cool Halloween style thing for that I think is pretty great and that I think he thinks pretty great and that he was watching and that what he did think was pretty great, but he hit a point, man, where he had to flee. He had to flee the room. He had to get away physically from the movie never, I wouldn't say never talk about it again because we talked about it a little and I told him what happens and that usually helps you heal a little from a traumatic event. But the good horror movies can traumatize you somewhat. They're about that sort of thing. And that's, I admire them for that. I'm not someone who's like, oh, can't we just have funny horror movies where people say funny, where the guy says something funny and then he just cuts the person's head off. I'm so sick of these serious ones. And I'm like, if you're going to cut somebody's head off, let's go for it. Let's make that as awful and horrible as it possibly can. So that's my philosophy about horror in general. And I'm pretty good, although not completely successful, I'm pretty good at avoiding that other kind. And I apologize for that, but that I just don't have much to offer you in that way. But we will try and review these and discuss them in a way that even if they're not your bag, or even if they are, whether I like them or not, hopefully we'll talk about what their essence is enough that you guys can make the right choices for yourself. That's what this show is about. That's what all of our sort of big, this is a list of terror, but what all of our sort of list shows are about. They're just throwing stuff out there that maybe you might be interested in and trying to do the thing that I think film criticism really is supposed to do more than any other thing. It does a lot of things, but the most crucial thing it does is provide clarity for the reader so that they can make their own decision the best they can. Whether they agree or disagree is beside the fact. If you write with clarity, that's what I try and do. So there you go.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So let's jump right on into it. This is part 2 of the 2022 list of terror. There we go.
Spooky.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump right in. Category number 1 is horror runs in the family.
Yeah, it does sometimes, doesn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
First one up is a movie called Separation, which you can watch on the Peacock channel.
Who wrote and directed Separation? We've already talked about him earlier in the show. We're going to talk about him once more.
You know, his name is William Brent Bell, but I really wish he went by Billy Brent Bell. But it's
William Brent Bell, who I just called Brent in the last episode. Sorry, mate. This guy made some interesting films. And as I said before, in Orphan First Kill, this was certainly true. And in this film, it may seem like nothing, and it's not enough to be a good filmmaker or to make a movie good, but he really fills in stuff well. And that's something that a lot of the kids making horror movies today, like, don't really get it. It's noisy, they're going from one thing to another, sort of stampeding through stuff. He really does you're driving in your car, you're in transition, you're going to your job, you're this and that. He really does a nice job of creating a physical world of the story and creating a mood that sort of surrounds it. Separation was labeled as cheap, boring, dumb, pedestrian. William Brent Bell made a name for himself on the horror movie Boy, which is almost 10 years old now. I've never seen that. I'm going to watch it this afternoon, but it wasn't part of this cycle of movies, so I saved it. Still not Halloween yet in real Showtime. So I'm going to watch that, and I'm kind of looking. I don't think it's going to be a miracle or anything, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. This movie's really good. Read the synopsis; it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, it's just real quick. A young girl finds solace in her artist father and the ghost of her dead mother.
Who's plays the father in this? Rupert Friend, right?
Yeah, Rupert Friend.
Rupert's fantastic actor. Really, really super like him. Really liked him on Homeland. He just did a stint in Obi-Wan Kenobi, that show. He's a man of 1,000 faces, but I really, really love him. Especially my favorite William Friend or Rupert Friend movie, although there's many, is he plays Prince Albert in The Young Victoria with Emily Blunt. That's a fantastic movie and a great performance. So Rupert plays this artist. He's he's famous for a children's book, actually, but he's not been able to. He's got sort of children's book artist, drawing block, or it's not writer's block per se, but and in this relationship, he's not really pulling his weight anymore, and they're going through a divorce, and everything is going really awful. And then his wife, in the middle of divorce proceedings, gets killed by a hit and run driver. And as her father says, played by Brian Cox, wow, there's a ringer. What's he doing in this? What he says is, this is all worked out very conveniently for you. Well, the mercenary, awful, hard truth is that probably did. A contentious divorce where she was wanting all the control probably wasn't going to go very well for him, because he was sort of a slacker, loser of a guy, good-hearted guy, but not the best father, not the perfect person for this scenario, and not able or willing to put up much of a fight against an A personality. So maybe it did work out good for him. I don't know. His daughter starts seeing things. That's not good, but she just lost her mom. So, that's kind of normal too. And it inspires.
Why would she say that?
Yeah, because it's happened in her room, which is sort of creepy. And he starts seeing stuff. Now, on one hand, this isn't good. Don't just seeing weird dolls and things coming to life. It's, it's not the stuff you're seeing. Contortionist doll clown, I guess, for the win. That's the creepiest thing in the movie. But it's not that they're seeing things. It's that inspires him professionally and gets him back on track with this comic book company. His personal assistant slash sort of mentee is helping out around the house and helping raise the kid, and just seems like she's basically a gift from heaven. Brian Cox is pretty pissed. He believes his daughter was murdered. He now wants custody of the child. But if you know how child custody stuff works, this Rupert's character would have to be a pretty terrible father to lose out in this case. He's not the best, but he's not that bad. And within that rich, imaginary playtime life that he and his daughter have, these things start to manifest themselves. The synopsis sort of said, comforted by the spirit of her lost mother, or is
the
it?
Goat,
or is it just using her? What is it? What's the worst thing that could happen? That's probably what happens in these sorts of movies. And when it isn't, you can say you're pretty pleasantly surprised by them. I thought that, again, Bell fills this up with stuff that really works. The actual hearing Rupert Friend's its character's monologue about why he should be allowed to keep his own daughter instead of his father-in-law is stunning. It's really an amazing speech, and it breaks your heart. And that's just, you're not expecting that from this kind of movie. And in fact, this kind of movie doesn't deserve that or even need that. It needs the scary stuff to really work. And the scary stuff in this one is all just crap you've seen before. There is absolutely nothing new in this film. But I like the human element. I liked some of the surprises. I liked that even though people were antagonistic towards each other, there weren't any easy heroes or villains in this thing. I thought that's neat. I like to see that sort of thing. And I like the big ending was kind of great. So it great for what it was. So there you go. Separation's worth checking out. And really, I haven't seen Boy yet, but I'd say any William Brent Bell or Billy Brent Bell films, as we're going to christen them on our little show, because we're allowed to do that.
Correct.
They're worth checking out. He does it right. He's got an old school. We'll talk about a couple legit old school guys that are further down on this list and what they bring to the party. He's got an eye for that. He feels that stuff, and I love that about him. So I'm willing to give him a chance. This is one of his least liked films because it's, if you've ever, what did the best review of it said, or the highest, most helpful review said, if you've ever seen a horror movie before, you've seen Separation.
Yeah,
it really is PG-13 horror 101, but
sure,
it's got its own little bits and pieces in it. They're not all bad.
Well, there you go.
And an absolute A-list cast for this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of bonkers. Yeah. All right. Again, speaking of having a pretty darn good cast here, our next film is called Things Heard and Seen, and it's about an artist relocating to the Hudson Valley and begins to suspect that her marriage has a sinister darkness, one that rivals her new home's history.
Bum, bum.
All right. Yeah, Amanda Seyfried,
and James Norton, F. Murray Abraham, Rhea Seehorn. Oh my God, what are you doing in this? How'd you get in this?
Karen Allen apparently stopped by for a couple.
Karen
days.
Allen and Michael O'Keefe, who way back in 1984 played a couple that were at odds with each other in a horror movie. I can't remember what it's called. Play a married couple in this, which is great. They're great. It's great. Both of those guys, it's so cool that they're in this, and they both are awesome. They both are awesome, Karen Allen and Michael O'Keefe. What a welcome thing. And of course, F. Murray Abraham is always awesome, but you have to write it so that he is awesome, because if you let him if you let him off the hook, he'll be terrible. F. Murray Abraham, does the Spinal Tap thing and turns things up to 11. This guy's so believable, academic, at a small school in northern New York, and not one of the special ones that you've heard of before.
Yeah, this is like Saginaw College or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even think I'm not sure it's even a real college, but but it is the Hudson, again, the Hudson River Valley, and the homes there are ancient. You are not allowed to do anything with them. You can buy it, but you can't change it, and you can't do it. It's all protected and restored. And so if you've ever been in that part of the country, this captures it really, really well. It's based on a novel. Not many of these are based on novels, so it's long-winded and it goes on for a while because it's got a lot of the novel plotting and beats to get through. James Norton, I think, is fantastic. This is the kind of role he's absolutely meant for. He's a British actor. He's playing an American here, but it's his life, and it's the pull of his life that is bringing her out here, where he's got a professorship at a small school, and he becomes a pretty popular professor, especially with the ladies.
The ladies, yes.
He's got almost comically all young hot women class art appreciation classes. But you get it. It's not played as comically as I'm saying it, but check it out. Right. And you'll see what I'm talking about. And there's temptations everywhere, and there's the history of the house is a dark one, and she sort of explores that. She's an artist and is sort of a fine artist, and she's trying to find her way in this new community. She's trying to support her marriage, but she doesn't know what's going on. Amanda Seyfried, who's it's really the two of them on their own parallel stories and how they affect each other. That is the story, but she's the character that the synopsis is talking about. Yeah. And she's a decent enough actor, and she's been good in this stuff. Every time I talk about her in a horror movie, I'm like, she's pretty good in it. She's not an actor that really excites me very much, but that's not to say that she doesn't do the work and stuff, and she kind of does in this one. It's just boring. It's not super scary. It's got a novel plot, and it's about a marriage, and it's about lies, the lies of history, the lies we tell each other, the things we omit, and how that ultimately turns to fraud, and how fraud is extremely damaging. And I thought it was good because it's just not, it doesn't feel like a conventional ghost story or horror movie. It has that a woman wrote a novel about a woman going through real stuff feel to it. And that I appreciated. The ensemble, as we said, is fantastic. But it just isn't, I don't know what to say. It's not super exciting. It's kind of long. It's not really scary. I don't know what to do with that. It's hard to recommend unless you want to watch something with a scary bent to it, that you can, pull the blanket over yourself with a cup of hot cocoa and just sort of watch something. This isn't a bad one. It's not a pleasant tale, really, because lies corrode everything. And that's what happens here. And there's no stopping it once it starts, but it's not going to traumatize you either. You will not have to run from this film or anything that happens in it, I don't think.
All right, let's leave this creepy house and go to another creepy house. Yeah, just had to go through that door. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There we go. All right, so now we're going to move on to The Invitation. Nathalie Emmanuel's second appearance on our little countdown here, or not countdown, but our list of terror. All right, The Invitation. A young woman is courted and swept off her feet, only to realize a gothic conspiracy is afoot.
Really like Nathalie Emmanuel. She plays an American woman who gets, what did you say, swept off her feet?
Swept off her feet. Yep, swept off her feet.
One of her English cousins has lunch with her and says, you got to come over and meet the rest of the family. Nathalie's a person of color. This family is this old, rich, white English family. They kind of go into the wheres and wherefores of that and how that went down, which aren't super important. But that fish out of water and the race, not exactly playing the race card. The race really is a thing that the film uses to alienate her from the people. Not just that, the money, all of it, high society. It should be romantic, but it doesn't feel right. And of course, there's a reason for that ultimately. And this movie, I thought I was following this along. I'm ready for a gothic romance set in modern times, where the new world character meets the old world characters. Like, that's a neat idea. Mm-hmm. And it's shot really well. And it's I don't want to say it's well performed, because at a certain point, everybody abandons any sort of normal acting style in this thing. And that is really what brought it down to me. And it's not the actor's fault. It's the whole approach to the material. You can see what's happening coming a mile away. And when it happens, to me, at least, it was really disappointing. For a much, much better gothic romance, check out Crimson Peak by Guillermo del Toro. That's more of a period one. Lots of ghosts, lots of blood, murder in that thing, but that got it, the formula right. The setup is great, and the payoff is really, really bad. And I heard that the filmmaker, she gave an interview and she talked about the different endings this movie had and how they had to pick one. And you couldn't win. They're all terrible. They're all bad.
That's that.
They're all bad endings.
Yeah,
when I was waiting for, because when I hear alternate ending, I'm like, which ending will Ryan pick? None of them. That was where this was going. One of those places. Why'd you even start making this thing? And that's hats off to Natalie. She's great. She'll be in better things. She looks great in it. The movie looks really, really good. Mm-hmm. So it's not, even the filmmakers, I think they can redeem themselves, but the storytelling just goes right down the tank in this thing. And I think it's fair of me to say that.
All right, well, let's move on to our next film. We have been spoiled in horror from countries like Korea and Japan and China, and now we're gonna have this is about a mother arriving from Korea to visit her family in America, and it's I'm guessing it's Uma.
I think it's Uma.
Uma, okay, Uma,
which is Korean for mother.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
Mother is not visiting. Mother's long dead. Mother was a Korean immigrant, and this is a second and third generation, played by Sandra Oh, and who's the girl?
Oh, the remains of her estranged mother arrive.
Yeah, the remains come.
Yeah, the remains come. Yes, we have Sandra Oh. I'm guessing it's Fievel Stewart.
Yeah. They're mom and daughter. Mom has this is the same thing that Michael McKean's character thought he had in Better Call Saul, which was this aversion to electronic devices. And so they live in this country home where they raise bees. They have big thriving bee colony. And unbeknownst to her, because she doesn't have a phone or the internet or a TV or anything, Sandra Oh's character, they started selling their honey online, and now it's become this really successful thing. So things are going pretty good. But the girl's sort of coming of age, and there's the mom has separation anxiety because she stays at home. She doesn't really interact much with the outside world, and she doesn't want her daughter to leave her. And she doesn't even think her daughter's going to leave her, but she's starting to find things around the house like college brochures and things like this that suggest that the daughter wants to experience a little bit about what's happening out there. And it brings back the mother-daughter issues that Sandra's character has with her own mother, especially when those ashes show up, which are extreme.
Yeah. And
that's it. Well acted, well shot. It's nothing super special, but there's the Korean mourning and the Korean sort of death rituals that are brought up in this, and the idea of what an immigrant's life is like. We saw a little bit of this in his house. This travels that path a little bit, and I was interested in it. I was adopted in 1972, and at the time there was a mass, especially here in Minnesota and in the Twin Cities, but everywhere really in America, there was this mass second generation post Korean War children coming over and being adopted like crazy here. And my adoption agency was at the heart of that. And through that, and some of I call them my Korean imports, is what I call those friends that I have, that I was brought on through Children's Home Society to teach little Korean boys and girls about Korean heritage, which is the craziest thing I know. But I demonstrated that I was able to. Joel said this on our very first show. I think Joel said this, or no, you said this on the show we did with Dana. It was actually her show, where you explained what a communications degree is and how he could pretty much pick up a manual, and because he's got communication skills, if he could bring himself to understand it, then he could teach somebody else. And I have those similar communication degree skills. So they taught me games. Basically, they gave me these games, and then I would play games with the kids, and I was a fun teenager, so that worked. I don't know what I'm getting at with that, except that the Korean part of this, the Korean cultural part of it, really meant something to me, and the Korean import story was meaningful to me. This film didn't get very great reviews, but Sandra was very popular, and I think if you're a woman, if you're a Korean woman, maybe not, maybe it's a little cheesy, because it is just a dumb horror movie in the end that uses these things as dressing. But I actually liked it. This was an afterthought. It was one of the extras. I didn't have it on my list. It got added to the list at the last second. And I'm glad, and I didn't want to be super traumatized by something. There's torture in this, and there's flashbacks, and there's some tough stuff, but it's an easy one to digest, and it's well done. So there you go. Sorry.
All right. So next up, we are.
Sorry, that's for you people who say I don't share enough about my past on here. I don't know. Those things maybe don't connect, but whatever.
Sure. We are going to leave the world of horror running in the family, and we're going to go to Paranoid Madness. And that creaking door tells us that we have now entered the manor.
Paranoid Madness. Is there any other kind of madness?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're creating, it's neat because Insanity's awesome on the page and on celluloid, because it is the literal act of creation being explored by creative people. Like, I always think that's cool, but when you're creating some reality that isn't real, the reason you're doing it is to protect yourself from the reality that is real, and what you're willing to do in defense of your alternative reality can sometimes be, destructive and dangerous. And that's why we lock those people up, and good riddance to them, Joel.
Indeed. And throw away the key and forget they were ever born. Salt the earth where they tread so that nothing may grow there.
I'll let you read for the manor. I'll let you read the synopsis.
Sure. After suffering a mild stroke, Judith Albright reluctantly moves into a historic nursing home where she becomes convinced a supernatural force is killing the residents.
This is Barbara Hershey is the star of this.
Hershey.
So good in this. I wish the manor was just, I don't know, it is what it is, and it delivers on its promise, actually. And it's really fun. Again, there's a Makia O'Keefe, Karen Allen sort of connection here too. Bruce Davison, who's another, is that right? Bruce Davison?
Yep, Bruce Davison. Yep.
Really good actor. You know him from everything. He when he was a young man, and when Barbara Hershey was a very young woman, and the cat from the Waltons, can't remember his name right now. John Boy from the Waltons. Anyway, they were all in this rated X. It's kind of a horror movie, but it's a psychological horror movie, very much like The Manor, where they basically took this unpopular kid and they brought them into their group, and then they just destroyed them. It's a really harsh film from around 1970, I want to say. And apparently Bruce Davison and Barbara didn't get along very well when they were making that film. And it's funny because when they were putting this one together, she was the star. She plays a dance instructor, a former dancer herself, a very creative, very sharp, not a person who needs to be committed to a nursing home in really any way other than these strokes aren't going to get better. What she has is not curable, and she doesn't want to be a burden to her family. She practically checks herself into this place before she starts seeing things that don't add up and don't make sense. They asked her, "Hey, what about maybe Bruce Davison?" And her reaction to that, not having fond memories of him, wasn't bad. It was, "Oh yes, I think that would be that would be great." And there's real chemistry between her and all the other people in this. And so all of that is pretty good. The central mystery is not bad, but again, it's a horror movie. The scares aren't there. And I'm not sure this movie is even about what it promises to be about. And maybe that's because it's got a great twist. That's be your mileage. But a lot like the Amanda Seyfried, things heard and seen, it just, your tolerance of this, whether you're going to genuinely be involved in it or whether you're just going to be bored to tears with it, relies upon the character stuff, which I thought was pretty good, but wasn't enough to get the 2 thumbs up from the movie show with Joel and Ryan, because it just doesn't quite get there. It's good though. Barbara Hershey's so good. There were things I liked about it, and I loved the callback to that other film, which is, I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was really awful. In a not really X-rated way. It was psychologically awful, and back at a time when you got an X rating, it didn't have to be full of porn or full of blood or anything. They said putting an X rating on something in 1970 was basically saying no children should see this. It should only be seen by adults. Only adults can handle this.
Yeah.
And, parental guidance not suggested. Just don't let your kids see this. And that to me it earned that rating. So.
All right. Okay. Let's move on to
The Manor.
That's The Manor. Now we're going to do, the next movie is Watcher. Now this is not The Watcher, which is a current miniseries on Netflix. This is Watcher, which is also from 2022. Starring Micah Monroe, who we had in a previous film.
Yeah, Watcher, not The Watcher. I can promise you this: if you're ever confused and you're like, "Are they talking about this, or were they talking about that?" Here's the way you can find out. It is my pledge to you, the listener, the dear treasured listener. The movie show with Joel and Ryan, as long as I have anything to say about it, will never, ever recommend a Ryan Murphy produced or written project to you. So if I recommended it, it's not the Ryan Murphy thing, The Watcher, admittedly, which has Naomi Watts in it, who we like.
Mm-hmm.
It's Watcher because if you look, it doesn't appear to be Ryan Murphy here anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's safe to proceed.
Correct.
Watcher is the most Hitchcockian, paranoid movie on this list. It's really, really good. Maika Monroe again from Significant Other. Fun to spend 2 hours with her in both movies. They're both dramatically different kind of movies. Significant Other was berserk, crazy. Let's see how many crazy crap things we can do in this and get away with. It turns out they did a few too more than they should have, but whatever. I admire the effort very much. This is very reserved. Again, it's a story of this woman who's moving for the sake of her relationship to a strange land
in Bucharest, Hungary.
Yeah, which is a place loaded with personality, and just trying to make a go of it. But there are killings going on. Some sort of serial killer is on the loose. It's all on the news, not a hidden secret or anything. And she starts having these experiences with this person who lives in a apartment building across from hers, who appears to just be standing there and watching her, and her breakdown and the way society treats her. I'm not a huge fan of the hysterical woman film, because I think we see that through history, and I think that's not flattering. I think hysteria is just a stupid, like, not real thing that was a stamp that we used to put on people who acted, especially women, in ways that were just a little too intense for us. And I think throughout history, people who have been diagnosed with hysterics have been dismissed. And that's very much what Watcher is. That is pretty much exactly what it is. She starts acting hysterical and is completely dismissed and has to sort it out for herself. And the question is that hysteria warranted or isn't it? You got to watch the movie to find out. But nothing new here at all, except just really, really well executed beat by beat suspense thriller that I thought was really great. So I liked Watcher a lot. The cool. Watcher.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not get into a tangent on that. All right. Let's move on to Resurrection with Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth.
Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth, right? That's why I showed up.
Correct. Margaret's life is in order. She's good. She is capable, disciplined, successful. Everything is under control. That is until David returns, carrying with him the horrors of Margaret's past.
Uma is going for something like what this movie actually pulls off. Rebecca Hall was this bright, shining star in last year's best horror movie. If you still haven't seen it, it's called The Night House. Man, is it good. Here, this movie, Resurrection's not as good a movie. It's got some narrative issues and some things, and you'll be able to poke some holes in it if you'd like. But here, Rebecca Hall is even better in a much more demanding role. Normally, I lean towards the smaller, based in personal truth type performances. That's not necessarily what this is. This is a woman who absolutely metaphorically loses her mind. I guess when we're talking in this category, I should differentiate the difference, but in a cinematic way, loses herself, and the way she plays it, where it manifests itself physically in her, everything that happens to her just whole being gets eroded and she becomes this sort of raw nerve of a person. It's a stunning thing to watch. It's harrowing to watch her. She's a single mother, and her daughter trying to make sense of it and trying to help her, and then ultimately just trying to escape it is harsh. I think the movie plays it very straight with these things, though, and I think the ending is extremely metaphorical and weird, and I like a good metaphorical and weird ending. Some of my favorites on this list have that, but this movie, it's kind of like, what? It's not that you don't get it, it's that you didn't know it was this kind of film, and I don't think I'm spoiling the ending by doing that. I think you got to be prepared for there's a nice physical reality payoff in something like The Watcher. This film's very similar, but it doesn't have that. It switches to the metaphysical and goes a bit off the rails as a result, but still a absolute journey worth taking if the psychological thriller is your kind of horror movie. Rebecca's just as good as there is on earth with us right now, and she's as good as she gets in this. So that alone, if you're a fan of cinema, is a reason to show up, I think.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's okay, so next up is so that does it for our paranoid madness a category. Next, we're gonna the next category that Ryan has labeled is labeled "Don't Miss the Point."
Try not
to miss the point. And that the first up,
it's gonna be tough to miss the point with these. So basically, I'm being cute when I say that.
Oh, okay. Well,
these are very pointed stories, we'll say.
All right. First up is Amazon, available on Amazon Prime, and it is called Master.
Synopsis, kind sir.
Yep, this stars Regina Hall. 3 women strive to find their place at an elite Northeastern university when anonymous racist attacks target a Black freshman who insists she is being haunted by ghosts. Each woman must determine where the real menace lies.
The meaning behind this movie and the point of it all, I'm sort of in lockstep with and really, really appreciate it. However, the delivery in terms of is it a horror movie or isn't it? It isn't.
Okay.
It's just it shouldn't have been sold as one because it is not a bait and switch that you're prepared to make with it and can't. And it doesn't really earn its big moments. Basically is being preached at. And that sucked. I love Regina King. I really do. Like as far as it's not a political movie, but as far as the cultural things that are being explored here, like I really think they're valuable. And yet it's just, is Regina good in it? No, she's good because she's thank God it's her. Some other poor person might have had an even tougher time, but no, it doesn't come off good in it because it isn't. It leads her into its artificial preachy place that's difficult to come back from. Sure. And that's all I can really say about it. And I rewatched the beginning of it because I missed something. And when I went and rewatched the beginning, it was the worst thing I could have done because it was all creepy horror setup, and I just was like, what were you doing with any of this? Why don't you just tell this story? This woman comes back to her alma mater where she learned to be a young, strong woman, and as the master of the school, it's a rather old term, but it's a thing that exists and you can kind of look it up. And she takes under her wing this student, and she's not really able to save her student from the darkness or herself, or her own ideas about other people get super out of hand. There's some other, you don't have the cue up, there's some other really shameful, quote, ripped from the headline elements to it that I really hated. I just didn't like Master, and I wanted to. Yeah, we don't need that here. I just don't know what to say. It's frustrating to me that because I'm on team everybody who made it, and I get what they're trying to do, but you gotta, the story's got to come first, and that's got to come from some place that makes sense.
Yeah,
I really, really, Joel, I want to be the last white guy in America who sits here and says this movie had an agenda, and I didn't like it. You know what I mean? Like. I liked the agenda. I didn't like that this movie, that all it was ultimately was an agenda. That was frustrating for me, and that is my honest reaction to it. So, and the fact that it made me one of those guys just kind of pisses me off.
It probably, Well, I mean, it probably, and again, that probably goes back to the fact that it was sold, marketed,
sold as a horror movie
film. And that's not what it is. So
what's the tagline for it? It's got a super horror tagline to it.
Let's see. Where is the tagline here? This school is cursed.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Look, the way it's cursed and the way we're all cursed it's on point. I didn't miss it. I get it. So don't write in and tell me I didn't get it. I get it. I just wasn't entertained by it and can't find anything to cling to in it other than the point of it, which I thought was, I don't know, like I said, I won't repeat myself.
All right, let's move on to
not the Master, and it's not very good. It's just not a very good movie. Ultimately, you got to do that part before you can do any of that other stuff.
Yep. All right, let's move on to Fresh. Little Sebastian Stanley, little Daisy Edgar Jones.
What do you call them? winning. That's Joel's term. They're very winning.
They are a
pair
winning
of actors.
couple. They're winning.
I love Sebastian Stan. I loved Michael Biehn back in the day, and to me, Sebastian Stan is Michael Biehn of today.
He's the Michael Biehn of our time.
Love him. And I've never seen Miss Eggers in anything, but I love her now too. So that just tells you what I thought about Fresh. Fresh was a movie I recommended to Joel. Joel didn't get to it. I think Joel got the right movie for him. Maybe he'll.
Yeah.
Still 2 days till Halloween. Maybe you'll, who knows? Maybe you'll take a stab at Fresh. That pun, I'm pretty sure that pun wasn't intended, but who knows what's going on in my head there. Read the synopsis. It just tells you everything without telling you anything. It's great.
I mean, Fresh follows Noah, who that's Daisy Edgar Jones, who meets the alluring Steve at a grocery store, and given her frustration with dating apps, takes a chance and gives him her number.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
Right.
Fresh.
Yeah, well, I
gave Fresh an 8 out of 10. Not many horror movies achieve this 8.
Here we go.
The coveted 8 out of 10.
This will help a little bit with it. I think so without spoiling. After their first date, Noah is smitten and accepts Steve's invitation to a romantic weekend getaway, only to find that her new paramour has been hiding some unusual appetites.
And you don't even need that. The fact that she gave out the movie starts with her out on a computer date or whatever, and it's the worst date. It's the worst date ever.
Yeah.
And it just, everything about it is terrible, and you just feel that this picking people by their profiles isn't working for them, because you can see why they might be compatible, but they just aren't. And this dude's standing in the produce section of the grocery store and makes some funny jokes and makes her laugh, and once he's done that, then the door is open for him to kind of, because you can tell he doesn't come on like a ton of bricks. He's very careful and deliberate and not wanting to freak somebody out in the store. But he has something funny to say, so he says it. And she's very entertained by him. Their date is wonderful and perfect in every way. They say things that are vulnerable, that have weaknesses in each other, that they reveal things to each other in true ways that both of them have empathy and a sense of humor about. And it just, you just fall in love with both of them, and I can't even get to where anything happens, because you just can't. Fresh is a pun in a lot of different ways, and the performances by everybody involved is amazing. The movie is really harsh and disgusting and terrible, and it just pushes the boundaries. It's like, imagine the worst that could happen in this scenario, and I promise you will not get there. You will not be able to imagine what actually goes down, and that is a big win for the horror genre. And
there you go.
And it's creepy, although not ha funny, loaded with dating humor and wordplay and goofy song choices, which I really appreciated. And because normally I hate especially these days, songs. If I hear Sympathy for the Devil in a movie again, I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna do. Something really awful. It's gonna happen.
That
something
creepy kid
physically will have to get broken in that moment. Yeah, exactly. So this movie didn't do that. It just dashes your expectations at every turn. Really, really amazing. And you expect the worst, and you just don't expect this.
Okay. That sounds great. That is a ringing endorsement. You should run out.
Be careful on the dating scene in particular, but be careful with Fresh. That's my only warning. Just be sure you want to really go through something before you watch that thing.
Be careful, Butafuoco.
That's creepy. Why would she say that?
All right. Next up is Men. Oh, men. Oh, you men.
I just watched this last night, so this is fresh in my mind. This is by what's the guy's name?
Alex Garland.
Alex Garland, who brought you Ex Machina and Annihilation, and he wrote the script for 28 Days Later, and Sunshine. So a frequent Danny Boyle collaborator, and now he's directing movies himself. A woman was about to get a divorce with her husband, who died by falling from a balcony above their unit. They lived in London, and the reasons for that are sort of revealed slowly throughout the film. It's played by indie darling, what's her name?
Jessie Buckley.
Jessie Buckley, who's in Lost Daughter last year and a whole bunch of things. She's with, for good reason, is the toast of the town on the little independent film market, and it's because she's really, really extraordinary. And this film, she's just sort of put through a pretty conventional horror ringer. What's unconventional about it does get unconventional. This is a very, very metaphorical film. For example, there are only two men in the entire movie, and one of them is the gentleman who plays her husband in flashback, and the other is Rory Kinnear, who plays all the other men in the movie. That itself should because the film's fairly straightforward in its first couple acts, that should tell you this is different. This is going to be weird. Really, having seen Ex Machina and certainly having seen Annihilation should give you plenty of warning that this is going someplace a little bonkers, and you just got to be willing to go with it if it's going to work on you. Some really unnerving stuff. Kinnear, my goodness, boy, is he amazing in the sort of Alec Guinness Man of a Thousand Faces type roles. Just really incredible, and he's always been really, really good. We know him from such sort of showy film things that it's hard to forget that in the last 20 years, he's only done a handful of films because he only does ones he's sort of interested in. He's mostly a stage actor in England. Yeah. He loves the stage and lives in the stage and can be drawn out with the right film project. And that gives him this tight, neat little filmography that I really, really dig. And I just don't know what to say. She's so good in it. He's so good. Garland's such an interesting guy. I read a lot of smarter critics saying, this movie's pretty kind of amazing and out there, but it isn't as amazing and out there as it thinks it is. And it's going to alienate people because it's pretentious and it's artful in artistic ways that are super arty. And that just rubs people the wrong way. I'm like, for my money, you can't do too much of that. Maybe I won't like you. It's possible, but go for it. I mean, go for it. Make an art horror film, please. That we don't have nearly enough of those. And this is a really, really good one. But Alex Garland, big studio film, like you probably expect it. You may be expecting something to deliver the horror thrills in a way that this doesn't. Sure. It really do that. So be warned. It's weird.
All right. Well, let's take a trip then into Familyville, and we're gonna do good, clean, messy family fun.
Another thing, last thing on Men, and I hate to leave it on a bum note because I enjoyed Men and like it, and we'll be adding it to my collection. But a woman wrote this thing. It was the last thing we kind of need is like an all male production team telling us that men are dangerous. It's like. It's good. She even liked the movie generally, but she's kind of like, but it has that sort of, it's nice that you get it, but now what sort of reaction to the film. And I think that is a very, very fair reaction to what's up there. As I say, that's why it's not in the art film category. It's in the get the point category, because it really has a point, and a movie that's as obtuse as it is, if it had less of a point, it probably would have been better, actually.
I remember when so moving on to the good, clean, messy family fun. I remember when Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 2C or whatever the show was called. When they were toying with the idea of calling it Don't Trust the Witch in Apartment. Yeah.
Because whatever they do, they couldn't say bitch, which is what the name of the thing was.
Right.
It's based on.
Yeah, and so, but in this first movie in the good, clean, messy family fun category, Netflix's Night Books Kristen Ritter is that witch in apartment 2B or whatever it is. So Alex, a boy obsessed with scary stories, is imprisoned by an evil young witch in her contemporary New York City apartment, and James Van Der Beek is not her neighbor in this one.
Not a real or imagined James Van Der Beek, although this is the kind of project where he would slide right in probably with ease. He would, because this is really it is scary. It's not for super sensitive children, but this is basically, we try and do a couple of family movies every year. It's hard because most of them are just stupid kiddie movies. This movie, though, I admit it got me. This is how you know I liked it, because it had one of those Nickelodeon like slime huge centerpieces at the center of the movie. Mm-hmm. Where they just get messy, and it's just the messy is the fun of the thing and the scary of the thing and everything. It's gross, and it was great. It was really, really well done, and I thought it was funny, and I got what they were going for. This really was, that part at least was fresh for adults, because if you're an adult of a kid and you watch all this stuff, people getting dumped on and slimed and slipping in mud, and it's just all that stupid physical kids things like seem to be turned up to the maximum in today's sort of kid entertainment. And this film, the filmmakers knew they were both pushing that easy button and also commenting on the style of the thing at the same time, which is very, very clever. Who directed this, and what else did he direct?
This is directed by David Yarovesky.
And he just did something pretty high profile recently, if memory serves.
Well, he's the guy who brought you Brightburn. He did the music video for Guardians of the Galaxy Inferno. He did The Hive.
So Brightburn, an actual horror story, really, and a rather intense one, that doesn't prepare you for this, because this isn't as intense, but it gets to the meanness of what it is to be a kid. It gets to the meanness of what it is to be a hostage. These kids, the tagline for the movie is "Right for Your Life." The kid has to keep the scary stories coming, because the scary stories feed this evil place with evil, or it feeds the evil in the evil place with fear and scariness. That's his use. If he runs out of scary stories, he's done for. And the film implies that these two kids, our plucky heroes, are not the first two to, by a long shot, to come through here. Kristen Ritter's fantastic because she's comedically genius. She's also extremely threatening when she wants to be. And when it comes time for her to bring the real meaning of why someone becomes a monster home, and the film wisely and greatly goes to that place for everyone involved, she nails that too. So what a great actor she is. Really, really fun, and exactly the kind of person you would want in a role of this type. And it's kind of her for the win, but the kids are great. The designs are fun. The weird, it's bigger on the inside, crazy apartment she lives in is amazing. The design is really, really goofy and cool. You can tell just by looking at the poster art, the art, the costumes, the makeup, all of it. It's just really a beautiful to look at and crazy, goofy looking film. And it creates its sort of own reality. And I dug that in. Mm-hmm. And it gets to the trauma, what it's like to being a kid that's a little different. And that's what a kid horror story should do. That's what they all kind of do. So it's nothing new in that way, but I liked it for that reason too. So I didn't love this movie. I don't want you to get me wrong. It's just a dumb family splatter Hansel and Gretel story, essentially. Sure. But that's what's wrong with that. That's great.
Correct. All right. Well, let's, weirdly enough, Marvel this year decided to get into the Halloween game and give us a little sort of superhero-y horror special in Werewolf by Night. And this is where if I would have had a werewolf howl, I would have queued that up. But that's the one sounder that I forgot. But anyway. So we have
first hats off to the Marvel, the Disney Plus Marvel special presentation logo, by the way. That's the first thing you see. That is awesome. I remember those specials that came before, it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and all that stuff that we grew up with. There was always each network had their own version of that. And I love the Dolly Madison commercials. And I mean, everything about that is nostalgic and wonderful to me. And there's no more nostalgia piece on our list this year than this thing. It's a throwback to the Universal monster movies, the Frankenstein. We did a whole episode on them. Go check it out. Way back in
that was
old time days.
Yeah,
one of our first Halloween specials. It's like that. It's 60 minutes long, so it's a little longer than a television episode, but it's shorter than a movie. It has all of that great shadowy black and white photographer. It was shot by noted film composer who's getting into everything else behind the camera, Michael Giacchino. Giacchino. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you looked that up. I had a hard time finding how to say that. He's a J.J. Abrams disciple. This has a lot of that sort of feel to it. It's pretty well made, but I have to say that the story is sort of beneath the trappings of it are all wonderful. The story itself is pretty lame.
That's kind of how I would describe it too.
Yeah, but it's fun to see Man-Thing. It's really fun to see Man-Thing if you're a comic fan. Man-Thing is super cool. It's fun that they captured Man-Thing's like huggability and his super scary rampage ability. He's not he's not the Hulk. He's not an easy one to pin down. It is. First impressions are really important to him, so be on your best behavior. And it was weird. Director himself said he was kind of surprised it didn't get a TVMA rating. It got TV-14. But I think you take the blood out of it with the black and white photography, and I think that was enough to get in. But it's in our family category because families are going to watch this. It's going to happen. Kids are not going to skip it because it's a little grisly for them. That'll give all the more reason for them to want to see it. So I think it's in the right category, but I don't know. I love those old movies. I love that style. I like the film craft on the display very, very much. I love Gail
Garcia Navarro.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's really neat. Gives a sort of Benicio del Toro really understated performance in this that I really dig.
Match that with the over the top performance of Harriet Harris, who is just so bonkers fun. God, she's so. Yeah,
it's worth 60 minutes of your time. I wish it was better. Maybe we'll get more, and they'll grow and get better. It feels like we've not seen the last of these folks, so we'll see what happens.
This is canon. This is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's see what happens with it.
See where it goes.
All right. So that takes enough family time. That's it.
There really weren't that many options that at least could interest me.
Let's go back to the real crap your pants creepiness here, and let's go. Horror can still be art too, so we got our artsy creepy, and the first up is Saint Maud.
Read the description for Saint Maud, the synopsis, please.
A pious nurse becomes dangerously obsessed with saving the soul of her dying patient.
Who's the actor in this? She's playing Galadriel in the Rings of Power right now.
Morfydd Clark.
Yeah, really, really good actor. So carrying this movie and really playing. This was from a couple years ago, so I didn't get Saint Maud. This was a quarantine horror film, basically. So because there's a movie coming up that's better, that is basically the same thing, where it's this person who is obsessed to the point of murder, basically, to the point of absolute wrongdoing in the act of. In one film, it's pursuing the dream. In the other, it's turning away from reality. In this, it's this religious piousness. She has these prayers that go on and on. If I could just save one soul, you know. And Jennifer Ehle in this film plays a character very much like Barbara Hershey's in The Manor, where she was a former like cabaret star and stuff, and she's just sick and dying of cancer and needs to be taken care of, and her soul can't be saved. She's, what did they call it in the other film? Modern. She's too modern.
Yeah.
She's got a very liberated idea what the world is and what's coming for her after, and they're a really, really bad mix that way. Not only that, she has fun, and maybe this is the lesson. I don't know. There's really a lesson in this movie. Maybe this is a lesson. Maybe the crazy religious person in your life, you shouldn't like poke them, make fun of their beliefs very much. Because maybe that sort of devotion and stuff, maybe it comes from a place of true devotion. But if you're getting it spat out at you constantly, it probably comes from a place of deep-seated psychosis. And when those two things combine, they can be grisly results. And Saint Maud was fantastic. It was everything they said it would be. It was very artsy. Very crazy and very just loaded with religion iconography and just a gung-ho performance by our anti-hero. I was pretty taken by it, actually.
Some might call it an unholy terror.
Sure. Okay. Although what's scarier, an unholy terror or a holy terror? If a holy terror is scarier to you, you should check this out. It's going to scare the crap out of you.
All right. Okay, next up is a movie, a little Icelandic film, Lamb.
I'll do the synopsis for this one because this synopsis is everything. I don't know what it says there, but a sad, childless couple in the Icelandic wilderness wake one Christmas morning, go into their barn to feed their goats, and found that a newborn lamb has been delivered overnight when they didn't think so. And they take that lamb to their bosom and make it part of the family. And horror runs in the family. Nature doesn't want you here. Like this, what this really is a quiet, creepy, weird art film that takes place in the mind and is difficult to find a way into it from a reality standpoint, but you can tell I segued from synopsis to Ryan's opinion somewhere in there because I realized my synopsis was about to spoil something. Lamb. This movie's bonkers. Noomi Rapace. Have we mentioned her yet? She's in 3 of these. Are they all at the end of the show?
Yeah, I believe so. We have another one coming up here in just a moment. So.
In the same category. And then I believe, So, okay. Noomi's fantastic as this mother who, if she wanted a child, she does now, and basically makes this lamb her kid, and the way it affects the people in the story differently. And it's total art house nonsense, but really, really compelling, both visually and like from a personality standpoint. It's crazy, but you kind of can't look away from it. I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
Cool. It does look bonkers. I have the trailers playing here on IMDb on mute, and it is crazy pants. All right. Next up is Crimes of the Future. It's Crimes of the Future, but I wanted to throw a little
by our old pal David Cronenberg, directing David Cronenberg, his first movie in quite some time, actually. Again, along with Men and another movie on this. I just watched this last night. I think I hated it. Does that suck, old son? David Cronenberg, you brought us so much amazing stuff through the years, and here you are finally sticking yourself out there and making a true body horror picture. You know, it's always been an element in all of his stuff. Even his non-horror stuff has some sort of body horror in it. And when you think about Eastern Promises, think about the scene where he's attacked in the spa when he's completely naked and has to kind of fight these guys out on the concrete, you know, with no shoes, with nothing covering his unit. That's an amazing action scene for that reason, but it makes you squirm because the body, the sound of the skin hitting the wet tiles, when they're struggling and fighting with each other. It's so sloppy and messy and scary and gooey and icky. Read the synopsis for this one.
Do I have to?
Yeah, you do.
Humans adapt to a synthetic environment with new transformations and mutations. With his partner, Caprice, Saul Tenser, celebrity performance artist, publicly showcases the metamorphosis of his organs in avant-garde performances. That's exhausting. I find Cronenberg exhausting.
There's not much of that can be left out of the synopsis in defense of the synopsis writer. And so it is Cronenberg that you're taking issue with. And again, if you take issue with that synopsis, man, there's no chance in hell you're going to like even a few moments of this movie.
Yeah, I'm sure the synopsis captured it, but yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, good, exciting, that's great. Enjoy, Cronenberg fans. I'm just not one of them, and that's okay.
He's made some of my favorite movies, so I don't know. I wasn't like super into The Fly when I was a kid, or Scanners or anything like that. But I really liked, I guess I really liked the movies he directed that he didn't write. I really liked Dead Zone. I really liked History of Violence. These are all not scripted by David. This very much is. It's from the mind of David Cronenberg. And it really is, you're lost in somebody else's nightmare. And it really is so amazingly accomplished film. The future tech, the surgical instruments, the weird high-class parties they go to, the makeup effects, the lighting, the way the scenes are shot, the really amazing performances that they get out of Léa Seydoux and Kristen Stewart in particular. And the patience that it takes with its own ideas, which is something kids these days just don't get. And I loved watching that it's about ideas, and it's engaging in the ideas, and it's the way it explores them is deliberate and cool and just gorgeous to look at. And Howard Shore's music, but what he's saying, man, this one, I didn't get the point. And it's not the end of the world that you watched a weird movie and didn't understand it. It's weird that you got to the end, didn't understand it, and just don't care to, and didn't really care to, even when it was happening right before your eyes. That's not going to be everybody's experience with it. But again, horror fans out there, this one's body horror and this one's that. All their little subcategories. Body horror has become a thing where they used to get one every 3 years, maybe, that only had an element in it. Now we get a half dozen a year, and you got to pick which body horror movie you're going to watch. So you're never going to find a better one than this. But what's that? What brings you to that? Is it just, oh my God, I can't believe I'm looking at this? Climb on board, man. This one's for you, because that's the only real reaction to have to the surgical performance art sequences. But what kind of idea is that? What's it saying about our world? What's it suggesting about our future? I can't answer any of that. Maybe I need more time to think about it, but
yeah,
it's an empty. I mean, it's probably true that I do, but it's an empty feeling when you walk out. Because I don't know what the hell Lamb was about really either, but there was a kernel of it that worked. And those movies that I do know what they're about, only one of them that was I really against. I don't mind being preached at a little bit. I don't know what this thing was saying. It wasn't a waste of his talents, because in a way it's like, it's perfect. It is from the mind of Cronenberg. But if your reaction was like Joel's, you're going to hate it. I don't think I liked it. I think I might hate it. It's worthy though of your hate. You can't just shrug it off. It's a master. And if there's a dude, it's a master filmmaker at work, and you can't just say, "Yeah, that one was weird." It gets to you. So
it seems to me that if there's any person working in film today that would be like, "Oh, you hated it? Awesome!" Like it would be like, "Yeah." That it seems to me, it feels like that would be David Cronenberg. It would be like, "Oh, you hate it? Cool, good." He wants some sort of visceral reaction. The worst thing you could say to David Cronenberg is like what you just said, would be to go, meh. Okay, that was okay. All right, let's move on. to our final
I was
film
sickened
in this category.
by it. I was not horrified by it. That's, to me, that's a bit of a fail.
All right, next up is You Won't Be Alone. Numi's back.
Numi, as one of a long line of witches, of identities that a witch spirit takes over on a long journey in ancient Macedonia. This is the last movie I watched before we did the shows. Art, man.
Art, man.
Like, what if we all went into like ancient Macedonian art museum and maybe the paintings and sculptures tried to tell us a story about like what it was like to be a lady, and it went on for an hour and 40 minutes and you were like, what's going on? Is that the same person as that? And is this a witch? Really? Nope. It's a witch. What I'm sure of is that it is a witch when it's over, but it's so weird. And it's so arty. And I really admired the cinema, the visual storytelling. It's from beginning to end, it's all voiceover. It's almost no people. It's a little bit of people talking to each other, but the main character has her tongue cut out as an infant, and so her whole story is told from voiceover, and it's hard to latch on to her life experience because she keeps becoming these different people. It's weird. It's a mess. It's a filmmaker who's descended from Macedonia, and it's the Macedonian legends and cultures and stuff. And I mean, if I've lost you, I've lost myself trying to sell this movie. Or
sure,
because I just saw it. It's the same with, I probably shouldn't have saved the art horror for the last night, but it's some of my favorite stuff. So I don't know what to say about it. It is critically beloved. It's one of those, got all the tomatoes, but the fans are like 50-50 on it. And it's in ancient Macedonian, with English subtitles. It's shot in the aspect ratio 144:1. I've never seen a movie 144:1. It's a lot like 133:1, which all the old TV shows and all the old movies are in. So it's not that exotic, but why the extra 11 points per one just to make sure that it's never been done before? I mean, it's weird, and it's super weird in that way.
Maybe there's some weird off-brand Macedonian television manufacturer that made their tubes, their glass tubes at a 1:4.
Well, listen up, ratio. Meme generating pro witch Facebook pages. This is it. This is the test. You want to be a witch? Watch this thing and get back to us and let us know, if you still feel the same way. Because I will say this about it: as far as witch experiences goes, it's completely unique and feels very, very grounded in history, and it's certainly full of entrails and weird nastiness, but it's so tonally ephemeral and ethereal that you just can't pull it down here with you. I couldn't. So like I say several times on the show, I admired it much, much more than I enjoyed it, but I still admired the hell out of it. I mean, wow, it's its own thing. I thought Lamb was its own thing, Numi. Mm-hmm. This thing is just completely different. And sometimes that's where the magic happens. And even if it isn't artists pulling us that way, we need that. So that's how I'll sum it up. I'll get all meta about it because I can't micro the thing in any way that would convey what it is to anybody.
Sure. All right. Well, let's move on to our next category, which is you've called it Ti West's Pearl, but the first movie that we're going to talk about is Ti West's X.
Well, here's a great our buddy, friend of the show, Brian, who came on the show. We have 2 friends of the show, Brian. This is Brian, who came on to talk about 1990 gangster films from his car, if memory serves. He recommended these to me. Of course, I'm a huge Ty West fan anyway. If you've watched any of our horror episodes, you've heard me talk about every one of his films, and even his non-horror film, which was a Western, I've talked about on the show. So I don't know that I love any of his movies, but as a filmmaker, I just love his vibe and his whole deal. So a lot of time spent in kind of A-list premiere television land. He decided to make a movie and was about to start shooting it in New Zealand right when right when COVID broke out. There are all these American actors and stuff over in New Zealand ready to shoot this slasher movie called X, which is the story of a X for the X rating, obviously, not being coy with what kind of movie it is. Super porny and very 70s and super slashery and stabby. Not typically my kind of thing, but what I knew with Ty was, and why I signed up for it was because there's 2 reasons. One, because I knew I could expect a comment on the forum itself from him, which it would at least get me to the end, even if I was having a miserable time. And 2, because Pearl had just come out, the prequel to X, and that looked like a total can't miss off the hook work of amazement that I had to see. Brian, to get back to him, saw Pearl first, and I said, "Oh, have you seen X then?" And he's like, "No, I hadn't seen that, but I'm going to see it now because Pearl was amazing." And then he saw X, and he was like, "I don't really like X. It's a good slasher movie, but." And I really think this is a case where, first of all, a guy like Brian's not going to see X ever unless Pearl exists. So this was the only order he could ever see it in, and you can see it in that order. But I believe release order serves these movies really, 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 really well. You may want to leapfrog X and go right to Pearl. And since it takes place, 70 years earlier, you probably can do that without missing a beat. But these X, when it got to New Zealand and they were just about to start shooting it, they were all quarantined for 2 weeks in their hotel rooms. And so that Ty wouldn't lose the beat of what he was doing, he video conferenced with Mia Goth, the star of his film, while they were in separate hotel rooms. And they created a script in 2 weeks that was an origin story for Pearl, this old lady in X. X is the story of a independent pornography movie that rents a cabin on a farm without telling the old ass owners of the farm what they're doing there, and proceeds to shoot a porn film. And then it's a spoiler alert, but it's a slasher movie. They'll just get completely slaughtered for very specific reasons, which are super elaborated on in Pearl. It's a grisly movie with all the slasher kind of deaths, some of which are amazing. It absolutely works as an old school, this is horrible 70s slasher movie, while also a fairly clever comment on 70s culture. And on the sort of vacuousness of like people who are willing to do porn to become a big star's dreams don't come true. I can't think of a single person who lived. There's a lot of people who did it. That was their entry into pornography, was they wanted to be an actor. And that's pornography is not that it doesn't take acting, but it's not your ticket to be a big famous accomplished actor. So that's misguided, and the film's fantastic in that way. Best slasher I've seen in ages. Really, really good. Pearl, on the other hand,
so let's move on to Pearl.
Pearl takes place during the other pandemic, the pandemic of 1918. And it's very clever. So they're wearing masks and stuff, back in 1918. I don't know, something about that I loved, but it's this gorgeous, beautiful Baz Luhrmann, like technicolored, nostalgic, 1920s movie Fantasyland version of the old farm lady from X's upbringing during World War I was about to end, and what her dreams are and how she follows them to their logical and ultimately illogical and insane ends. And also played by Mia Goth. Mia Goth, in a turn that they couldn't have anticipated before they'd written Pearl, plays both the old farmer lady and the star of the porno film, both. That she's awesome in both roles. And here, as the young old farmer lady who bears a striking resemblance to the ambitious young porn actress, is as amazing as I've seen anybody in anything all year. And of course, I've only watched horror movies so far, but Mia Goth's performance in Pearl is incredible. And Ty West's, and everybody involves, all the design group, because they wrote this in quarantine. They started shooting X. They sent the script to A24 and said, can we just stay in New Zealand and shoot this next movie like at the end of this? And they read it and were like, yes, you sure can do that. Keep whoever you can, get whoever you need to. Pearl's German immigrant mother is played by the intimacy coordinator on X. And believe you me, the intimacy coordinator on X was a full effing time job for her, because every kind of sex you can imagine is featured graphically in that film. So if you don't like that, I don't like that sort of thing, but I liked X anyway. It tells you how good it is. Pearl's off the hook good, man. It's so good. It's so good. I just don't know what to do with it. It's horrifying. I was horrified throughout that film, and yet I just don't know it. I just don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. I don't want to ruin what it is. I have already almost ruined the connection between the films, which you also don't really want to do. Any good slasher movie is at least partially a whodunit, and X does a really, really good job at that. It's a complicated answer to that question. And Pearl, even though it spells everything all out for you, its horrors are so horrific. It just doesn't prepare you for it. Even though if you've watched X, you should know what you're getting into. And I loved it. Ty West he's just genius. Everything he does defies expectation. Everything he does it comes from a true place and a true love of cinema, and the love of cinema and the critique of the style of different cinemas in all of his work. And Mia Goth, who I already knew was really good, but man, after sitting through those two movies, she's stunningly good. She's only good things are coming for her, I suspect. So.
Well, very cool. All right, let's move on. Our the penultimate category is the Boogeyman, the Bye-Bye Man, the Slender Man, and now the Empty Man.
The Empty Man. With respect to the ultimate movie on our list, this also from 2020. So, like Saint Maud, I was reading articles. What are the best horror movies of the last couple of years? Trying to pick my list. And I think 2020 is the oldest movie on the list, so I didn't go that far back in time, but I went back and caught some that I had missed along the way. And The Empty Man was by far my favorite horror movie of this cycle, and it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And I've only seen it the one time 3 weeks ago, and I knew halfway through it that was the case. And I'll tell you why. If you watch the trailer for The Empty Man, you're going to see a trailer for The Boogeyman and The Bye-Bye Man and The Slender Man. These are all Boogeyman stories where a bunch of dipshit teenagers unleash some terrible urban legend on themselves by doing the thing you're not supposed to do at a certain time. In the case of Empty Man, it couldn't be more stupid. If you find a bottle on the bridge, blow into it 3 times and ask to see the Empty Man. On the first day, you will see him. You will hear him. Then the next day, you will see him. Then the third day, he finds you. That's the tagline of the movie. And you're thinking, oh, teenagers get whacked by a boogeyman person that they summoned into being, just like Candyman or any of the other man movies. This movie is that. That's part of it. This movie's got a 22-minute pre-title sequence that has nothing to do with has nothing to do with, but is only loosely, vaguely connected to the rest of the movie. It's a short film in and of itself. It is effing brilliant. It's terrifying. Nothing in Empty Man is as scary as the first 20 minutes. I know that was a letdown for a lot of folks. I get it, but you just gotta hang in there. Or don't. I'm sort of like, I don't give a shit. If this is something you don't like, then I don't care. Screw you. I get the Empty Man and I get to keep it to myself. Here's the story behind the story, The Empty Man. The Empty Man, along with Underwater, but it's technically The Empty Man, was the final film made by 20th Century Fox before the Disney purchase. It's got a $25 million budget, so low budget for a big studio film, but still a big studio film slickness and epic feel and style to it. First time writer filmmaker. How he got a deal with 20th Century Fox, it has to be a story in and of itself. I don't know it, but that he wrote this thing that is so weird and strange and so thematically difficult to grapple with and leaves you with so many more questions and answers. And they just said, sure, kid, let it rock. Maybe because they only read the first 22 pages and then stopped reading and said, oh, this is great, go for it. I don't know, but I love it. James Badge Dale is the star of it. Every time I talk about James Badge Dale, it is with flying colors. James Badge Dale as the cancer patient in Flight. James Badge Dale as the businessman who makes everything happen in The Walk. James Badge Dale as the commander of the station they visit in World War Z, who gives the zombies the code name Zeke. I love James Badge Dale, but I love him in these little brief fits and starts that he shows up in. I've never seen him as a leading man. In this film, he's a tortured cop whose ex-girlfriend's daughter goes missing as part of this Empty Man curse. She was one of the kids on the bridge. And he goes hunting for her. And what he finds is beyond your wildest imagination. And I just thought it was so off the wall, crazy. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes long. I couldn't believe the 20th Century Fox. I still can't believe it. Paid for this thing. I paid for it on Amazon. I started watching it. It was the shape of my TV. And I was like, it didn't feel right. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Most of these were the shape of my TV. Most of the good horror movies this year were not widescreen epics. They were TV shaped, spherical, as we call it. So I stopped it because I'm like, I'm going to like this. I don't want this. So I stopped it and I wouldn't watch the trailer. Sure enough, the trailer's in scope and it looks awesome. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. So the only way on streaming, so even though I'm recommending Empty Man unreservedly to anyone who will take a chance on it, where to send you to find it, I just don't know, because not only did Disney crap all over this by releasing it in few enough theaters that it couldn't possibly make enough money to be released on home video. So there's no DVD and there's not going to be any Blu-ray. It's contractually, if you make less than $2 million, they don't have to release your movie on home video in any way. They dumped it. They didn't use it on their own platform. They dumped it on HBO. It's not on HBO anymore, so I don't know how it showed there. On Amazon, though, it's crap. The sides are chopped off of it, and it wrecks it, and it pisses me off. I went online because I'm a super genius when it comes to hunting down movies, and I found an Eastern European broadcast version in high def that played it in its proper aspect ratio. And it's spectacularly shot film, super moody, very scary. James is fantastic. He plays it very down to earth. Stephen Root shows up as a weird businessman cult leader. That's joy. That's film joyousness. He has a line that he says, "There is only the great binding nothingness of things." It's a movie about nothing. And what's terrifying about emptiness and nothingness. And it nails it almost every second. There's a couple of things I'm kind of like, that probably shouldn't be in this movie. But if it were in any other movie, it were in the kind of movie it's sort of spoofing or that it's a take on, it would be genius.
Sure.
And I loved Empty Man, and I don't know how that guy's going to get to make another movie, but I hope he does, and I will show up for it if he does. It's a Donnie Darko-like experience, but it doesn't have any of the hipness of that. It only has loneliness and emptiness at the core of it, and I just related it to it extremely strongly, and I didn't care that it ended and I didn't know what happened. It felt exhilarated and amazed, and I wanted to watch it again right away. That, to me, that's movie magic, and it rarely happens with horror movies. It can only happen with a movie that takes the chances this takes, and there are as many people that hate this thing as that love it, but it's going to be a cult film because those of us who love it are going to cry to the heavens, you got to see this thing. And I believe that to my core. I just wish I could point you to where to see it properly, because, man, because I think it's crucial that you do. So,
well, that is high praise.
It is. I loved it.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I understand why other people hated it, but I loved it. I loved it.
Okay, well, let's move on. Our final category is the first annual Movie Show with Joel and Ryan Award for Special Achievement in the Field of Horror Excellence.
It's hard to sing the theme song along with that.
Well, I didn't really have a fanfare, and that was the closest I could come up with a fanfare.
It's the first annual The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan Award for da-na-na-na special achievement in the field of excellence. And I was actually looking for the clip online, but I couldn't find it, of Clubber, what's his face, coming out going, Webster's Dictionary defines excellence as.
Yep. All right. Well, so
you know what excellence is? Look it up if you don't.
Yep. No, this was good. This was the movie that Ryan recommended to me. I watched this, and the movie is called Barbarian. And well, first of all, okay, so I'll share. It ticks all of the boxes that Joel does not like to see in movies. Long dark tunnels. People who can only being able to see what is illuminated by a very dense flashlight. Those are stairs that leading into darkness.
Scary, decaying neighborhoods.
Yeah, things walking up those stairs, even if it is our hero. I still don't like people walking up those stairs. Yeah, Barbarian. And I say all of that to say, what a damn fine movie.
Yeah, Barbarian. I mean,
it's creepy as hell. And
it doesn't let things like the laws of physics get in the way of just spinning an amazing yarn. Very, very moody, very, very creepy, and yet very, very gutturally, sort of in your face, violent and horrific and gory too. And a whole bunch of other things that you wouldn't expect. And it really is a stew of horror. And it's just, but it's a stew of horror with ingredients that I don't think that have quite ever been put together exactly in this way.
Yeah. Sort of almost two shorter films that tie in together, maybe. It's.
I think as short films they would be terrible. I think they need each other to live and breathe in this thing.
You're absolutely right, because the second part doesn't work without the first part.
Right. And vice versa, ultimately, I think.
Yeah, ultimately. But it's just like you're going along and just when you think that just when you're sort of in the groove of the movie, suddenly the movie just has a massive tonal shift.
Yeah, it's a completely different movie.
And then kind of starts again, and then they come together, and it's really terrific. Georgina Campbell, who is our hero. She's really great. Bill Skarsgård.
She shows up in the rain to an Airbnb that already has that. She puts the code in the keypad to get the key to get in there, and someone's already in there. And who is it? It's Bill Skarsgård. Brilliantly cast in this for two reasons. One, because he's just really the perfect guy for this role and really does a great job with it. And two, because who he is, because of his horror clout, we expect him and are a little nervous that he's going to turn into a demented clown at any moment.
Right.
And those two things work just brilliantly in the film's favor. He's outstanding. Georgina is really, really great. And of course, Justin Long, a veteran of Jeepers Creepers movies, which this film, the only thing I didn't like about it was it kept reminding us of that with little visual motifs and stuff. I don't want to be thinking about Jeepers Creepers and that. Mm-hmm. Although the guy plays a guy who's going through something the creator of Jeepers Creepers also went through in his life, and for good reason. And that doesn't feel like a coincidence either. I don't know. The movie's weird because of those. Like I say, not because it's, again, not anything you haven't seen before, because it really isn't. Especially like me, I'd watched Fresh and I'd watched all the different versions of this movie all throughout. This film I watched only a couple of days ago because it just came out streaming on the 25th. Yep. So this is as new as they come. But I'm with Joel. The smorgasbord keeps you, the tonal shifts, which normally I hate, they just keep you on your toes and just off balance and just not knowing what to expect or what happens next. I think as time goes on, when I'm a little less smitten with the experience of it, I think some of the actual things that happen in it will impress me less. Mm-hmm. But it's about the feel of the thing, and the movie knows that, and it really embraces that. And if the choice is sticking with the crazy feel of it or doing something that maybe makes more sense, it always goes this way. It trusts its instincts, and that confidence comes through in every scene. And so you just, Empty Man's a philosophy lesson. It's academic. You have to dig into it to find the meaning into it. This thing, you just got to sit back, put your seatbelt on, and hang on to the end, and maybe you can get there. And that's a delight too. So expertly crafted by another first-time filmmaker who hopefully big things are around the corner for them. Or even if they just stick to stuff like this, it'll be fun to see whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, Zach Kreger is our director and writer.
So Barbarian, I really, much as I went on twice as long about Empty Man, Barbarian, I think if I just pick one of these guys to say this is the one, I think from this season, Barbarian's the one for you.
Yeah, and that is why it is the winner of the first annual The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan Award for Special Achievement in the Field of Horror Excellence. That's not for nothing.
We don't give those awards to just anybody.
In fact, we've only given it one time.
Just the once,
and that is Barbarian. All right, folks. So that is your 2022 list of terror. A whole crap ton of movies over 2 episodes that you can partake in this horror holiday season, or frankly, if you want to let your horror holiday extend a little bit into November, go ahead. No one's gonna mind. It's all right. Go ahead, watch yourself some horror in November.
No good or bad time to get lost in the woods with a bunch of creepy horror movies.
Yeah, you know what? If you're thinking about going backpacking in the woods, don't watch one of these films instead. You'll be better off, and you might learn a little something too. All right, everybody, you can reach out to us at The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan.
The real horror, Joel. The real horror is the friends we made along
the way.
Yeah.
All right, you can reach out to us on the Facebook page, Movie Show with Joel and Ryan on Facebook, at Ask Joel and Ryan on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please go ahead, like and subscribe, tell your friends. Like
and subscribe. I get it. Maybe you don't want to subscribe, but gee, come on, like the thing, please.
It's a thumb.
When you have
thumb up,
it takes no seconds. It's nothing. It doesn't do anything. Correct. When you're watched, let me tell you, when your video is watched by 16 people and only 1 people like it, and it's you, it's just depressing. We're just begging you this year for Halloween. Give us the gift of just a couple of them thumbs. Just
Let
a couple,
that be our treat.
Couple thumbs. That's all we're asking. It's not too much to ask, I don't think.
For sure. All right, everybody. We got some cool shows coming up as we get into the holiday season here. But thank you so much for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.